All right, and here we are back with another episode of the Uncivilized Art Podcast. I'm your host, Bumi Hazan, but I go by Bandit Haze in the online space. This is the Geek and Internet Culture Podcast where we talk about movies and games and just general geek culture. Today we're going to be talking about The Walking Dead, and I'm back once again with my man, Sweet Bundy. How are you doing today, sir?
Doing good, man. Can't complain.
That was a long gap between, is audio coming through okay, by the way?
I think it might be connection because I do see like it's like a little blurry on your end.
Oh, is the background blurry? Is my face blurry as well? So if the background is blurry, that's fine. I set that. That's normal.
Not
But is my
everything. No, it's not. No, I know that, but I'm
oh
saying not
all right.
everything's blurry.
Okay, everything's okay. Okay, so there might be a connection issue. So hopefully, it's not too much of an issue.
Yeah.
But okay, just I guess a little bit of a warning for anybody listening. There may be slight delays between questions and answers. Hopefully not too, hopefully it's not enough of a delay to ruin a conversation though. But yeah, how you been? So what you been watching? What you been doing? What you been playing, etc., etc. What's been keeping Mr. Sweet Bundy busy over the last couple of 2-3 weeks? I think since we spoke last.
Yeah. Well, as far as shows go, I've been watching Agatha all
Oh yeah,
along,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
that's pretty good. It's nothing to really write home about just yet. I know a lot of people are excited and everything, especially with this reveal that they did. For me, it's more entertaining with the actors and somewhat of the story. But other than that, it's not really an exciting show for me personally. I'm not like
Mm,
telling people, "Oh, do you watch that?" I'm not talking to anyone about it. I just mentioned that I watch it, and that's it. I watch some YouTube videos about it afterwards, uh, to try to understand what the hell just transpired sometimes. Uh, but that's pretty much it as far as like Agatha. Now,
mm.
Penguin, on the other hand,
Oh yeah, yeah,
Penguin
yeah.
has been very, very good, and I love that show. Like, it's so like the writing is on point. It's pretty much like The Sopranos. It's so someone like that. Is more gritty and everything, in my opinion, of course, because the whole Gotham aspect. Uh, they don't even mention Batman, so it's almost like you're if you didn't know that this was a Batman character, you'll be like, "Yo, this show is fucking dope." It there's no uh comic book aspects to it other than like those hard hitting comic books like Sin City or something like that, or something that you would expect from Frank Miller, even though me personally I don't really like Frank Miller, but hey,
Mm,
whatever.
mm.
Anyway, so yeah, Penguin has been great. I love that show. I love the actors. I love everything about it, honestly. I haven't been bored since with that show. As far as games go, Sparking Zero just came out. So Sparking Zero is like the fourth game of the Dragon Ball Z Bodogai Tenkaichi series. So that was a big deal for it to come
Okay,
out
I know you're into
because the
Dragon Ball
last
Z.
time we had a game. Oh yeah, definitely. I grew up on
Yeah.
that.
Okay, nice one. I mean, I didn't watch
So
it too much myself, but I know it's a
um
big thing, and that's a big
the
thing.
last time, oh definitely, Dragon Ball Z is like cemented in history. It's pretty much like one of the great grandfathers of this whole anime scene that now everybody's apparently into. But yeah, like Dragon Ball Z is definitely up there. Don't get me wrong. Of course, some people want to shit on Dragon Ball Z, like the newer generation, and some people who just didn't get into it, but they're into the new anime because of all these things that you're comparing it to. But you can't just outright. Here's the thing: you can't outright say fuck something that started it all, right?
Yeah,
Now, I'm
yeah,
not
yeah.
saying Dragon Ball Z is the only anime that started everything. No. But without Dragon Ball Z, there's a lot of aspects, there's a lot of animes, period, that wouldn't exist. Naruto, one of the biggest, um, like, kind of recent generation animes. kind of recent, you know. Uh, that shit was inspired by Dragon Ball Z,
Mm.
down to the character designs, down to the story, everything. So you can't disrespect, you know, the founding fathers is, is what I'm pretty much trying to say. So I find it very frustrating when people try to do that. But anyway, that's the only reason why I mentioned that part. But yeah, Sparking Zero has been great. I'm not gonna overhype it and say, "Oh my god, it's mind blowing." No, it's a great game. It's a great game. The amount of content that they put into this game, the amount of time and effort and everything, and there's some tweaks and stuff that they need to put in. And me personally, I don't like the way they do the storyboard type of storytelling when it comes to the story mode that they have. But I understand it will be a lot of time, a lot more money. But there's some stuff that they cut a few corners on. However, what they managed to do and what they managed to put into the game, great, great. That's all I gotta say. Great, fun. Um, I already got like I got some hours in. Like, you know, that game has been amazing. It's only been out for like a few days now. It's only been out for a few days.
Okay, okay. So it's. I mean, was you? Is this something that you were anticipating for a while, or that you just found it and started playing it? It was great, or uh,
Nah, this was announced a while ago. I
o-
think maybe a year ago, if I'm not mistaken.
okay.
Um, a lot of Dragon Ball Z fans were like counting down the days for it. Me, I typically don't try to wait for it like that when it comes to anything. And yeah, it was a surprise announcement too. Nobody had any inkling that they were going to make a new Dragon Ball Z game. Um, People just thought, even when they were making the announcement, people thought, oh, it's going to be a remaster. But then then the announcement changed to, oh, it's an entire new game. It's a new sequel. So that blew everybody's mind.
All right.
And me, I'm cynical, so I'm expecting the game to come out. I even said before to people, if this game ever has a sequel nowadays, they're gonna have a bunch of DLC, and you're not gonna have all these characters like
Mm-hmm.
they used to. Um, Tenkaichi 3, which is my favorite Dragon Ball Z game, um, that one has like, if I'm not mistaken, over 100 characters. But either way, it has a shit ton of characters, especially back then in the PS2 era. Now, um, me, I just didn't expect them to put all those characters that they did in this new game, but they did. They did.
Okay. So
And
you
of
don't
course,
have
they
to
got some
pay for
DLC
downloads and nothing,
characters that
or
you're gonna have to pay for.
oh, right, they do. Okay.
I mean, down the road you will, but for right now, you got access to a whole bunch of characters.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Still, though, that's pretty cool. I mean, I guess it's one of these things with the way modern gaming development is going, and they're going to make their money somehow. But I guess as long as it's not just taking a piss too much, where they're just nickel and diming you for absolutely everything. If it's not like that, at least then it's not so bad, and maybe a few purchases down the road ain't so bad. But yeah, I mean, if they're putting that much in to begin with, that's something. At least that's something.
Yeah.
All right, cool, cool, cool. Well, as for myself, I actually managed to get some time to do quite a few things, which is pretty awesome. So, been watching some shows, been watching a movie, and managed to finish one game that I was playing. So let's see. Let's start with this one. I managed to finish Far Cry 3, which I've been playing over the last, I think, 4 or 5 months, give or take. Far Cry 3 from 2008, the old game. I know, but I tend to play older games these days. It just is what it is. They're cheap and they're work. So been playing that and completed that. And it's a pretty decent game actually. I think it's still worth playing it in 2024. Like it's 12 years. Actually, no, 2012 it came out. Excuse me, not 2008. 2012 it came out. So yeah, 12 years ago, and I think it's still worth playing. It still holds up pretty well. It definitely made some what I felt were some odd choices throughout, but overall, Yeah, it's a pretty solid game. It's a pretty solid entry, like it's new. It's a pretty solid game in the series. And I had it. The thing is, I had that game for like the longest time. I got it free ages ago. And it's just been sitting in my library for just the longest time. In fact, I got quite a few Far Cry games for free. Actually, I got Far Cry 3 for free. I got Far Cry 4, 5 for free. I did pay for Far Cry 6. However, I bought that on Stadia, and when Stadia closed down, I gave everybody a refund, so I got my money back for it. And I still have access to the game as well. So yeah, I've gotten quite a few Far Cry games for free. So I've done pretty okay with Far Cry games, I think. But yeah, I've had this for ages. It's been sitting in my library for the longest time. Finally decided to play it, and yeah, pretty good game, pretty cool. Bit odd at times, but yeah, overall pretty good. I started watching Only Murders in the Building on Disney Plus. It's they're on their fourth season by now, so it's been around a little while. But I just started watching it. I'm on season 1, episode 6. I think I just watched, and it's pretty good. You know, like it's actually really really cool. I mean, I figured it might be an interesting show. That's why I wanted to watch it. It looks interesting to me. But yeah, it's actually even a lot better than I thought it would be as well. Like in terms of like the way they tell the story and how it comes together. It's a comedy drama, but oftentimes the comedy dramas they don't balance out very well. They're either too heavy on the drama and then the comedic bits suffer, or it's too heavy on the comedy and then the drama bits suffer. I feel like so far that I've been watching it, they've balanced out the comedy and the drama really well to the point where it's like it's never too dramatic that you can't laugh at certain things, and never too funny that you don't feel the drama. You know, you don't feel the sadness in certain situations as well. Do you know what I mean? So it balances out the humor and the seriousness really, really well.
Yeah.
And yeah, so far, like I said, it's like 10 episodes for the first season. I think about 10 episodes each season actually. But yeah, I was only about halfway through the first season. But yeah, so far so good with that. It's by the way, it's Selena Gomez, Steve Martin and Martin Short as the main actors in it, but it do pop every now and then. You see like a movie star or like somebody famous pop up. Like Nathan Lane's pops up a couple of times. Sting appears in a couple of episodes. Tina Fey's been in it a few times, and I know down the road like Mel Streep and Paul Rudd show up as well. So yeah, I feel like it seems like they're gonna have like quite a few big stars popping up at various episodes, which is really cool to see. But yeah, so far so good with that. Only Murders in the Building. But I guess the biggest thing, at least for me anyway, is that I went to the cinema and I watched Terrifier 3, which was awesome. It was awesome. I feel like I mean it's I mean I saw somebody's review on this, and I think I agree. As much as I liked it, it's a difficult film to recommend because I also realized that it's not that there aren't a lot of people who like these types of movies, but it is very much not necessarily a lot of people around me. You know what I mean? It's still quite a niche kind of movie. That being said, it did do really well in the box office this week. I was reading that it grossed like 18 million and actually made more money than Joker Part 2. So it's doing quite well right now. So maybe there's more people who like these types of movie than I realize. But yeah, it's Terrifier 3. It's just a very, very disgustingly violent, gruesome horror movie. I mean, if you like horror movies, I mean, people talk about Saw. I haven't seen all the Saw movies. I've only seen like the first one, and then I've seen Spiral. And you know, they can get pretty, at least the first one anyway, they can get pretty gruesome at times, but it's worse than that. Like if you if you think you like violent movies, but you've only really watched the mainstream stuff, yeah, it's worse than anything you've seen. That much I can. If you've only watched mainstream violent when it comes to horror movies, then yeah, this is I could all but guarantee this is like worse than anything. It is disgustingly, gruesomely violent, pretty much throughout the whole movie, and yeah, I thought it was amazing. I enjoyed it from beginning to end, because and it's a Christmas movie as well, which makes it even better. Maybe not a full-on Christmas movie, but it's still a Christmas movie. But but yeah, if you've seen Terrifier 1 and 2 and you enjoyed those, I think you'd like. I think you'd definitely like this. If you haven't seen those movies, if they just don't really appeal to you, if you're squeamish, definitely not. Just don't even bother. Don't even bother. Like if you're the type of person who turns away and yeah, just don't
Yeah,
bother. Don't bother.
I'm actually surprised that you like Terrifier. Me, when it comes to the whole gory movies, like I'm not really too. And don't get me wrong, I'm not like, you know, like I said, I mean, like you said, squeamish or anything. For me, it's just I hate the excessiveness and like I don't want to go ahead and talk trash about the Terrifier too much because I didn't really watch it. I watched some of it and then I was like, yeah, this ain't for me.
Fair enough.
But Saw after Sweet Bundy, the longer Saw went on, they started becoming a parody of themselves, and that's what happens sometimes, especially when it comes to so many movies, and especially if it's a horror movie in general. Which another thing, I don't really like horror movies too much. But yeah, it just becomes a parody of themselves. Like there's this one Saw film, I don't even know which one, where it's one of the later stages. As soon as the movie starts, you have two people, they're in this trap and they have to fill in this thing with either blood, spit, whatever they can fill it in with, to weigh down this lever, and whoever weighs it down fast enough can go ahead and get out while the other person dies. And the first thing the person goes for is their arm. Like they just go to straight up chop off their arm. And I'm just like, nah, what the fuck? So the first gore that we see in the movie is this person chopping off their arm. And it's just a regular banker or some shit like that. So it's like, no, it doesn't work like that. Nobody's gonna go ahead and just immediately go, I'm gonna chop my arm off.
Okay, he's not desperate enough yet. You need to drag him to the point of desperation before you can chop off his. Yeah, I get you. Too much too soon. It's like, yeah, come on.
Exactly. So I don't, that's when I knew Saw was dead. The first film was great. That ending still haunts me to this day. For the first one, Saw 2 was interesting. I don't really remember too much from it, but it was interesting. Saw 3, I think I remember Saw 3. I'm not sure. But that's about it. I wouldn't tell people to go beyond that because I don't remember a Saw film after those first 3 that was actually good.
Yeah, I mean, I do eventually want to watch the Saw films. In fact, I might try and watch them soon because I've seen there's a bunch of them on Netflix right now, so I might watch them soon. And and the thing is, it's the thing about Saw. So I watched Saw, I believe, round about the time it came out. I maybe not exactly when, but pretty much close when it came out. I think I watched it anyway. But I remember really liking it. Like you said, that the ending, like the twist and everything was done really well. But I remember thinking that I didn't want to watch Saw 2 because it came out about a year later, and at the time, I feel like even now I still think this, that when like movies or games or anything has like yearly iterations, I'm like, I'm out. Like I just felt like a year is not enough time to make a good movie. That's my feeling at that time, and pretty much how I still feel about a lot of things now. A year is not enough time to make a really good movie. Now, that being said, it's not impossible, of course, to make a good movie in a year, but I just, at the time, I was like, nah, I'm good. And for a good while, they were doing them like every single year, and I was like, nah, I'm not sure that. So that's my reason for not bothering with the rest of them at that time. But now that they're all done, I guess, and I think they just did a 10th one last year or year before, recently anyway. I'm kind of thinking, yeah, you know what? I'm not particularly expecting them all to be as amazing and mind blowing as the first one was. I get that's probably not the case, but I'm still feeling like, you know what? I like horror movies. I should probably watch these. And now they're in a format where, on Netflix, where I think like the first 3 of them are on Netflix. I think maybe the first 4 actually, I can't remember. But anyway, they've got a bunch of them on Netflix. I'm like, you know what? Maybe I should see if I could get through these, and I might like some, might not, but we'll see. we'll see. But yeah, I do want to watch the Saw movies eventually. With only seeing the first one and the first one in Spiral, and not seeing the other Saw movies. I still feel confident in saying there's nothing in the Saw series that matches anything. Like the least gruesome parts of the Terrify series is far worse than the most gruesome parts of the Saw series. That's my feeling right now. That's my feeling right now. Because yeah, from the jump, like Terrifier was just absolutely disgustingly violent. And yeah, there's people who like that, and apparently more people than I think. So if you're one of those people, shout out to you. There is a fourth movie been announced by the writer-director. What's interesting, actually, because you just mentioned about some movies that go on too long, like Saw, and let's be honest, Halloween went on way too long as well. But what was interesting, he was talking about that he does have a fourth one in mind that he wants to do, and he wants to make a fourth movie. Potentially, though, that could be the last one. He didn't confirm it's going to be the last one, but he did say that could possibly be the last one because he already knows that, you know, some series are going too long. What you don't want to do is end up just making all these movies and then you've run out of ideas and you're just making them for the sake of making them, you know. So I'm kind of glad that he said that. Yeah. Hopefully he could stick to that, because you know when the money starts coming in, people change their minds real quick, right? We've all seen it happen, and it seems that so far each film has made more money than the last. So hopefully he could make a fourth movie and either round it up then, or if it does go to a fifth movie, just round it up then. But basically, however many movies they make, hopefully it never gets to a point where it's just too many and it's just dumb and it's gone along. Hopefully it never gets to that point. But I guess that waits to be seen. But yeah, definitely so far so good with the Terrifier series. Keep being disgustingly violent and hopefully get even more disgustingly violent as they go along. Because it's great. It's great. But yeah, that's been pretty much me for the last week or two. Well, I've got some other stuff, but yeah, that's fine. We'll get into that some other time. All right then, let's see if we can get into the main discussion then. So, The Walking Dead. We're going to be talking about the main series of The Walking Dead. We are going to get into some spoilers as we do. Quickly before we get into spoilers, I'll do like a non-spoiler bit real quick, but just so you know, yes, we are getting spoilers and try and get into some detail. I've watched the main series from beginning to end. Bundy, I think you said you watched up to season 7, 8, is that right?
I watched up to I don't know if it's season 6. But
okay.
Pretty much the first episode after Negan's arrival.
Okay, so when you
well, not the first episode, but the first few episodes after Negan's arrival.
Okay, so you kind of bounced right when he sort of turned up, or pretty much around about the time he turned up.
Yeah, I mean, we'll go into more details when we get there, but
cool.
You know, pretty much.
All right, so yeah, so before we get into all the main kind of spoilers and stuff, just as a quick non-spoiler review from myself, I mean, I enjoyed it from beginning to end. I'd watched up to season 8 previously in the long ago days, you know, before they were kind of consistently on. Because before they were on, I think, like Netflix at one time, then they took it off Netflix and they had it on another platform, and it kind of, you know, and you're trying to watch stuff there and watch stuff, and it kind of got messed up. And I think I got up to about season 8 or so, and then ended up missing something and then forgetting about it, and then for the longest time I just never watched it. So in the last, I think, year-ish, I decided to just kind of watch them all again because they're all on Disney Plus. In fact, they're all on Netflix again now as well. Bloody hell. That's how it goes. Anyway, I decided to start in the beginning and watch them all again, and it is the main series. I know there was the Fear of the Walking Dead that ran alongside it. It was like both a prequel and parts of it set during the same time, and I think parts of it set after the main series, I think with Fear of the Walking Dead, but I didn't watch Fear of the Walking Dead, so I can't talk too much about that. And I know there was a whole bunch of other smaller spin-offs as well that they did, and of course the new spin-offs they got now that have come since. But yeah, this is going to focus mainly on the main series from season 1 all the way up to season 11. And yeah, but yeah, I enjoyed it from the beginning. And that being said, I can understand why some people didn't like it. I think if you're interested in it, it's worth checking out. I do think it's worth sticking through to the end, even though I've fully admit right now the ending. Well, we get into more details of that. But I still think it's worth watching. So yeah, that's my non-spoiler review. Before we get into the main discussion, Bundy, do you have any non-spoiler things you want to say of the sort of 6 seasons that you watched, or up till Negan, which that's about 6 seasons ish.
Pretty much. I'll be able to go into more details once we get into the spoilers part, but as far as like a non-spoiler review, and at least from my point of view, for me, somebody put it perfectly said. Somebody else reviewed it and they put it perfectly. They said that somewhere around season 3 or 4, somewhere around there, they start doing a boomerang effect with their story. And what that means is like if they bring in an interesting plot, they'll go ahead and go on to something else. And then you have to wait till it goes back to that plot. If like let's say you're only interested in that plot right now,
Mm-hmm.
you gotta wait. You gotta wait till we go back, circle back, and then we can go ahead and continue that plot.
Okay, yeah, I
And
think of what you mean.
when
I
he
think
said
okay.
that, I remember being in, having to sit and wait and being frustrated with that. Because they'll go and you're around these characters and something serious happened, and then all of a sudden they go elsewhere and fucking Carl's walking around in the damn woods or whatever. Just as an example, you
Mm-hmm.
know, just bullshit that will come out of nowhere. But it's not as bad in the early seasons. It's when we get kind of down the road where they start doing that. But for me, that was just one of the aspects. That's not the real reason why I quit the show. For me, it was more of like it was a lot of shit going on that you could easily parody, and many shows have. I'm quite sure they have SNL skits out of the ass. I remember watching on YouTube people do skits about it, parodies, and that's when you start to see like, yeah, everybody's kind of aware of it, but they're caught up in the moment, they're caught up in the show, and they're caught up being a fan. Um, and I was a fan of The Walking Dead for a while too. I remember every time after an episode, I would watch The Talking Dead, and a bunch of fans gathered together. They'll talk about it and everything. It shows right after the show, so I'm dedicating like 2 hours to the fucking series each time. Each time an episode shows up, but yeah, after a while, it just becomes a parody of itself. They have all these tropes and things that happened a million times in the show. How is it a walker just comes out of nowhere? You don't hear footsteps, you don't hear the growling until somebody's bit or gets attacked. That's when you hear the growling. You know, all of that, everything, and so many points where this person is all the way over here and then somehow they travel across the fucking land to end up here at the right time at the right moment. It's too much convenient storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty much all of that shit accumulated to something that ends up happening that made me say, yeah, fuck this show.
Oh, okay.
And I
Okay.
can't go into
Well,
details about
let's
that yet.
yeah, let's all right, let's stop there for a second before you say too much. But yeah, we'll get into spoilers now. Then we get to spoilers now. So this is your spoiler warning for The Walking Dead main series, seasons 1 to 11. If you haven't watched it, you might want to check that out first. But if you're watching this far, and it's been on for ages, I'm just going to assume you either already seen it or you just don't care about spoilers. So let's get into discussion. So my first question, as we kind of just ended of what you just said. So, what was the reason that really made you say, "Nah, this is I'm dead. This show, allow it. Just bun the rest of it. I don't care that I've watched 6 seasons deep. I just don't care. I don't care that this guy just turned up. I don't care. I'm leaving. What was it that kind of really made you just leave the show initially?
So when Negan shows up, he's like he has the best moment in the entire series. I feel like Jeffrey D. Morgan does an amazing job. The voice, the acting, everything. And shout out to the set designers um, and costume attires, whatever. The people who put together his outfit, they put it together perfectly. The people who did his hair, everything about that whole scene and everything was perfect, except with the cliffhanger. The cliffhanger was bullshit. It was absolutely stupid. It was a waste of time. It was just hugging that nonsense. The fake out Glenn death, just episodes, just mere episodes before that, was bullshit. First off, I really fucking hate fake out deaths. I feel like it's so petty, it's so weak. You just do, if you're gonna do something, just do it. Don't fake it out. And they did a fake out Glenn death just episodes before that, and then they did a cliffhanger to give people hope that it's not Glenn, and then they go ahead, they come back a whole season later, and they say, oh well, it's not Glenn, but then it turns out to be Glenn anyway. So that shit, me personally, I don't like Glenn. I don't like the character. So I was glad to see him go. And I'm glad that it wasn't just Abraham, because that would have been lackluster waiting all that fucking time for Abraham. It would have been more hard hitting if it was Daryl, but of course they're not going to get rid of Daryl. Um, and they teased it. They even went as far as to film everybody's death so it wouldn't leak as who really died. So I remember it showed up on YouTube during that wait, where they showed like alternate deaths. So if it was Maggie, for example, Maggie's death leaked. So yeah, they went through all that effort just to go ahead with the original plan anyway, with the exception of with the inclusion of somebody else that nobody really cared about. Nobody was like up in arms like, "Oh my god, Abraham," except for the hardcore fans. That's it. Um so going forward, after let's put it in perspective like this. You're in a group, you got caught, you got beaten down, two of your people got brutally murdered in front of you. And the second person that got brutally murdered was because one of you guys fought back. One of you guys tried to attack. I don't know what the fuck Daryl was thinking, but hey, whatever. Um, and this guy's powerful. Obviously, he was able to do that. So Rick, he's acting appropriately. He's traumatized. He's submissive and everything. Negan's talking all types of shit in his ear, and Rick just takes it. But what do other people do? Carl's like, oh, we gotta fight back. We gotta fight back. If I remember correctly, Rosita went as far as to tell Eugene to make a bullet specifically to shoot Negan.
Hmm.
So you guys don't get you guys don't understand what the fuck is really going on here. Like, two people just got their heads fucking smashed in with a bat covered with barbed wire, and you guys want to go ahead and fight back anyway. Now, I don't care what anyone says. 90% of people are not going to be ready to fight back just yet. It makes no sense, because you got to be smarter. And even when they fought back, how the fuck the bullet end up in the bat? So she fucks that up, and then somebody else dies. But it's a nobody that dies. I feel like, nah, at that point it should have been Rosita. Why not? Uh this this is what I'm saying. I didn't like how it became too inconsequential to fight back, because in reality, and that's what Negan brought. He brought that reality back, where yeah, anybody can fucking die, right? Now, of course, they're not going to kill. It's still a show. They're not going to kill off Rick this early. They're not going to kill off Daryl this early. But you know, for people who didn't read the comics, for them that was the element of surprise. Like, oh shit, they took out a major character just now. Somebody from season one, they took him out like that because they fought back. So now they're on edge. And I feel like that was your missed opportunity. You got to have a chance to break down that veil, right? Where we know, okay, these major characters are safe, not so much the other characters, right? And I'm talking about for the people that didn't know about Glenn's death in the comics. You got a chance to remove that and make them feel unsafe again. And they ruined it because people were so traumatized based on Glenn's death and everything that they made the group fight back way too early, in my opinion. I feel like it should have been some time that they had to cope and deal with, the deaths that happened, um, and deal with defeat, eat that defeat, sit in that defeat for a while, and then slowly regain their confidence again. That didn't happen. They rushed to being the Walking Dead and being whatever the fuck Rick's group is called, and just going up in arms. And then they end up succeeding anyway. So that, I mean, yeah, that happens in the comics as far as them succeeding, but you gotta realize it like this: the comics used to come out with an issue once per month, right? So they didn't have time to really stretch it out that long. Like, the author wasn't trying to um fucking write a novel. He was just doing comics. So, but with a show that's episode by episode each week, right? You got time to stretch this out. Stretch it out. Make us feel that dread. Don't fight back just because the fucking reaction of the people. Fuck the people. Um, you got to tell a story. You're a storyteller. Tell a story, and that's it. Don't go in there trying to appease to the people because you do bullshit like where you think, oh man, we're gonna get a big reaction out of them for this. Like the fake out death. The fake out death for Glenn, what was the point? What was the point of doing a fake out death for him just episodes before, right? And then you go ahead and proceed and kill him off anyway in a brutal way. And then you stretch that out too. Again, with the cliffhanger. That made no sense to have a cliffhanger because if you're gonna go with the actual plan anyway, then what was the point? The point was to just go ahead and tease it out. So pretty much that frustration of all that, along with like I said, with the fight back, that's what made me rage quit this series. I only came back to watch like key moments, like Carl's death. I didn't give a shit about Carl, but I was happy to see him go. I was hoping that he actually went out a little bit more than just him walking around all like reminiscing and be like, all right, well, I'm gonna die here. Like, fuck all that. Just fucking die. Um Me personally, I just didn't like Carl. I did not like Carl. Um and I will also say this. If I was a fan of Carl's, that was some bullshit of how he went out. That was some bullshit. It honestly felt like, if I remember correctly, it just felt like the writers were just like, hey, let's get rid of this guy. Let's just get rid of him. Because if I remember correctly, is because of a fucking doctor, a random doctor, a random act of kindness, and he just decided to protect this dude. And then the dude turned out not to be so good or whatever, or something like that, or dishonest, something along the lines of that. And I just feel like, no, with a character like this, if he's gonna die, have it be more meaningful, have it be more impactful, have it be something that really, it fucking matters. Like, don't just have it be a random act, a random thing that happens. And I don't even think the doctor survives long enough. I think he gets killed off later on anyway. Not the same episode or the same season, but down the road. I think he gets killed off if I'm not mistaken. By the way, it didn't really, as far as I remember, it didn't turn out to be anything meaningful. It was just supposed to be symbolic or whatever at the moment. Yeah. Yeah. And then I also watched I came back to watch Rick's quote unquote end. That was bullshit. But we'll talk about that when we get to it.
Okay, so there's a lot in there to try and respond to. Let me see if I can. All right, so okay, let me start with this bit first, just because I think it might be quicker to answer. So yeah, the doctor wasn't a bad guy that Carl helped. So what happened is that Carl found a doctor, helped him out, and they went off to kill some zombies, and then Carl was bit by a zombie. Personally, I didn't think that was a bullshit. ending, a bullshit end for Carl. Mainly because it's very easy to kind of get caught up at this point. It's very easy to get caught up in a whole, Rick versus Negan, and seeing those as threats. Like it kind of brings it back to the fact that they are still in a zombie apocalypse, and anybody can get bit at any time. So I don't think that was a bullshit ending. I just thought that was like, this is part of their reality they're living in. This can happen. And yeah, you've got this whole thing with the two warring factions at this time, but at the same time, it is in a zombie apocalypse or a walking. They don't use the word zombie, I know, but it is in an apocalypse where this can happen. So for me, it was kind of like, yeah, it was. It wasn't like the greatest death of all time. I know that, but at the same time, it's like that's the reality that they're facing. That you can get bitten and you can turn. And then, of course, Carl kind of does his last kind of acts as he's getting ready to go. In regards to, and the Doctor does die eventually towards, I can't remember which season it is, but yeah, he does die. He actually gets killed by a traitor. But that Dr. Siddiq, he was pretty much a good guy, at least as far as the show goes. What was that? Yeah, so from Negan, you mentioned about how Rick was kind of distraught and things like that, and everyone else or some of the people were kind of just go fight back. I didn't think that was an issue either, mainly because it's like everybody is going to act the same way. I mean, yeah, people. It is a traumatic thing. They just saw their friends getting killed. They are up against this guy who is way more powerful than any enemy they've went up before, and it does seem pretty hopeless right now. In terms of how can they get past this guy? He's taken Daryl hostage. He's just killed Abraham. He's just killed Glenn right in front of them. And what they thought was going to be a relatively straightforward task of helping out, the hilltop, turned out to be this whole thing because the saviors are much, much bigger than they even realized. So it does seem hopeless at that point, but not everybody responds to it in that way. And you have to remember that Rosita was very much in a relationship with Abraham. Granted, they weren't in a relationship at the time of his death, but the way they ended the relationship wasn't that mutual. He was a decent enough character as far as I remember, but he was definitely a dick towards the end of it. Like the way he just kind of dumped Rosita and went with Sasha. Sasha dies a bit later on actually. But yeah, he pretty much dumps Rosita and goes with Sasha, and the way he dumps her was pretty harrowing, in terms of like it weren't no easy letdown. It was just like, yeah, it's over. But just because you say that doesn't necessarily mean all your feelings just stop. So you have to remember that Rosita's dealing with a lot of mixed emotions and anger at that point, and then seeing this guy get brutally murdered. So yeah, her response I don't think was out of character, and I don't think she was ex-military. I don't think she was, if I remember correct, I don't think she was actually ex-military. But do you believe she did have some kind of military adjacent type thing? Certainly when they introduced her and Abraham, they're both kind of military garments and that kind of thing. So I think she was, I don't think she was actually in the military, but I do believe they mentioned something about something military adjacent. But the point is, she's, very much about, her family taking care of people, and that kind of thing. So yeah, by the time Abraham gets taken out, she is dealing with a lot of emotions, and maybe she isn't thinking all too clearly about what's the most logical way forward. She's just angry, and yeah, she attempted to kill him. It didn't work. It was maybe a bit of a BS with the way the bullet just hit the bat. I'd agree with that point. It was like, come on, really, the bat of all fit, But in terms of her being angry and wanting to do that, I get it. And what else was there that I wanted to respond to? It was about I forgot what you said now. So Negan turned up, blah 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 blah. Oh yeah, the deaths, the fake out deaths and stuff like that. And Glenn, I didn't read the comics, so I can't comment on what's happening in the comics or how they compare to the show or anything like that. I can say though, in my experience watching the show, with Glenn's death was somewhat spoiled for me because I saw somebody post something on Twitter where it had a picture of Glenn and it had like some, it was on a package of meat, like in like a ground beef meat, and it had a picture of Glenn on it. So I was kind of thought, okay, Glenn's gonna die. That's kind of spoiled it for me. I didn't know how he was going to die though. So as I'm watching it, and you see all these moments where it looks like he's gonna die there, like when that guy shoots himself in the head and they fall down, and turns out all the zombies are on top of them. Glenn manages to escape, and there's I think like 2 or 3 other moments where it looks like Glenn's about to die, and he does, and he escapes it. So although I knew it was coming, I didn't know how it was coming. So I'm watching these things like, oh, this is when Glenn's gonna die. Oh, it doesn't happen then. This is when Glenn's gonna die. Oh, it doesn't happen then. And even when the end of that season where you don't actually see who Negan kills, you just see him hitting the bat, right? I was thinking, oh yeah, it was probably Glenn. That's what I was thinking, because like I said, it's been spoiled. And then of course the next season comes around, and then you show it and it says it was Abraham, and I'm like, oh, okay, so Glenn survives this bit. And then what I liked though is that when they did kill Glenn, it was very sudden, because like he wasn't all like, oh, let's pick. He was just like, no, bang, and so. Even though I knew it was coming, it still caught me by surprise. All right. So yeah, I was okay with it. I mean, you said Glenn was you don't like Glenn. I find that hard to believe. Glenn was a good guy. But in terms of how he died, and I guess that with a show like that, you are looking at people who've read the comics and things leaking online and this, that, and the third, and there's all kinds of ways of trying to maybe deal with that as well. In terms of how they did it, I thought it was done pretty well, because it was still very sudden. And it wasn't like in the previous season where he's like all like eeny, meeny, miny. He didn't do none of that. It was just like, okay, someone else is gonna die now, and then bang and smack, so yeah, that was fine with. I mean, it was sad to see him go, but that I was fine with. And of course it leads on to whole thing with Maggie, and and her anger towards Negan. Now, in terms of where I felt the show definitely did some BS. Like I said, I enjoyed it, but I could definitely see why some people didn't like towards the end. As it gets towards the end, there's some confusing time skips. Like in the last 1 or 2 seasons, there's some confusing time skips where this bit is like, I think 6 months ahead or 1.5 years ahead, and it's like then it's 5 years later, and it's this, and then it's like, well, where exactly are we in the timeline? It doesn't. It's not always clear as to where they are, because sometimes it would tell you such and such ahead. Like 6 months later or something like that. Or now we're going back 2 months. 2 months earlier, this is happening. Sometimes it did that. Other times it would just be like, it would show like a character that are clearly older, and you're like, okay, this is some time ahead, but it's not really telling you how much time has actually passed. You kind of have to figure it out from maybe something that gets said, maybe. So there's definitely some confusing time skips as it got towards the end. And also, like with the time skips, like Negan even gives 2 different time frames of how long he was in prison for. So he's in prison for a while. He tells one person that he was in prison for, I think it was like 10 years, 8 or 9 years. I can't remember the exact number he says, but he says for like 8 years. And then he tells another person that he was in prison for 9 years. And that's like maybe like an episode or 2 later. And it's like, so how long was you in prison? You know what I mean? It's like, can we get consistency here? And also with Negan as well, he gets his throat slashed at the end of, I think, season 8. It might be season 9, actually. It might be. But he gets his throat slashed at the end. And personally, I felt like they should have just let him die. Because at this point, they've gone through so much. And Negan is by far the biggest and hardest enemy they've come across. Let him die. Let it end there. But he doesn't. Rick tells the doctor, which is Sadiq, to save him. And he, taps his throat up, and he puts him in prison. He does it as a mercy to show him that people can live in harmony and stuff. And I get it, I get it from terms of like trying to be the good guy, and it ultimately was in honor of Carl, because Carl had that kind of vision. So I get it, right? It kind of makes sense in terms of the story, but personally, I just felt like, let it die. But if you were going to keep him alive, at the very least, I felt this is where the main series should have ended. With that part, if they killed him, fine. They didn't kill him, fine. But this is where I really believe the main series should have ended, because everything after that, at the last like 2, maybe 3 seasons. I think the last 2 seasons they weren't bad. I liked it. I enjoyed it. They had some great villains, especially with Alpha was an amazing villain in my opinion. In fact, Alpha was maybe one of the best villains throughout the whole series. But at this point, it's kind of like you're introducing these really hardcore villains that they have to go up against, but they don't have enough time to really be as hardcore as they could be. Because Negan, I think, was like 3, 4 seasons or something like that. And like the whole kind of Saviors thing was over quite a while. Like it wasn't a quick thing, and even the governor, like that was like 2, 3 seasons or something, like it was a good while that they were dealing with these guys. They had some minor villains in between, but these like the governor was like the first sort of major villain, and then you had a few minor ones, and then not minor, but not as big. And then you had Negan, which was the next kind of major villain, and then after that, it's like you got someone like Alpha, who should have been a major villain on par, if not maybe higher than Negan and the governor and that kind of thing. But it's just not enough time at this point, and she just ended so soon. And it's kind of like this is like easily the most twisted, sadistic villain they've come across, and by far the most dangerous in terms of how she controls the horde of zombies, and could unleash them at any time, and just so vicious in her approach. Like when she talked about the line that she's going to use to divide them, and she marked it with the heads of like 7 of their people, and said, "Look, you don't cross this line." And they all had to walk back past everybody, all these people, including like Henry and Tara, and so say it, don't spray it, so that, what I mean? It's like this point of like, you're seeing all these people or some main characters in there, and they had to walk past their dead friends and know that they cannot cross that. Like, of course they do, because it's a show, but I mean, this is setting the stage for somebody who is like next level, and then it's kind of gone by the end. It was like 1 season or one and a bit season, and it was like, okay. So like I felt like somebody like, and even like the timeline with the savior, not the saviors, the whisperers and things, it just fell off. And certainly by the time they get to the last season, where they're dealing more with the Commonwealth, and how that is, it's just another governor thing where it's like, okay, they've done this already. It looks great, but it's actually something sinister. At that point, it's like, dude, come on. So like, they have these villains, they have these cool characters, and they introducing people like Princess and Mercer, who I generally thought were really cool characters. And definitely I feel like they could have their own kind of spin-off backstory type thing if they ever went that way, because they were interesting characters. And fundamentally, they were interesting stories. But it's like, at this point, what's the point? Like, we've done Negan. You know what I mean? We've done that. And everything else is just kind of, these should be spin-offs. These should be spin-offs where they can develop them and flesh them out as fully as they can, rather than the last couple of seasons of the main series. And also the whole thing with like the Commonwealth as well, because they said the Commonwealth was there from the beginning. Like when Yumiko meets her brother, she was like, "Oh yeah, I found this place in the beginning of the fall." So pretty much like from whenever the zombie apocalypse started, the Commonwealth was founded pretty early on, and they've just kind of been there and they built it up ever since. But the thing is, like, they all seem to be within relatively reasonable traveling distance from each other. You're right. They're like, the way they travel from one community to the other, they're able to not necessarily easily travel, but they can relatively travel between communities, whether horse or whatever, or there's cars, vehicles, they can travel between communities, with some level of ease. And it's kind of like, okay, so you've got this community that's 50,000 people strong that you've been building from the beginning of the fall, which is like at this point supposed to be like 12 years ago, and yet nobody's ever heard of you until now. You know what I mean? Like or even the fact that they've never heard of Negan and the Saviors, and how big the Saviors were. And at no point when they were all kind of spreading out in their journeys and looking for different people and building up their communities, none of them ran into the Saviors. Really? None of them ran into the governor. None of them ran into the Whisperers. None of them, and none of them just running into each other. They're just all existing within everywhere they travel, and none of these groups are running into each other. They're all, like you say, there's a bit of convenience in the show where it's like, all this time they're only happy to be dealing with one group at a time, when there's these other groups, and they're all moving around in a similar sort of area, but none of them meet each other until the appropriate season. That was kind of like, dude, come on. And then another thing that I thought didn't make sense as well was when they introduced the Reapers, which was like, Daryl met this girl when he was like looking for what's her name, Rick, and he ends up meeting this girl that he hangs out for a little bit, but they split up because he goes to look for Rick still, and she goes back to her group. Turns out she's part of a group called the Reapers, who are these kind of like military mercenary type people that, kind of a cult leader type figure. And they had a run-in with Maggie's group after Maggie left for a while, and they were stealing Maggie's group supplies. And that's kind of like, I just felt that was dumb at this point, because at this point you're like, 10, 11 years into the fall, why are you still stealing? You know what I mean? Like, why are you still stealing? Like, at this point, if you can't figure out how to grow and make your own food and supplies and things, like, how are you still here? Like, if you're relying on just stealing from people all this time for the last 10 to, like, how are you still here? Surely somebody's taken you out already. You know what I mean? This is not the first time you're running into trouble or running into a group, especially with the Saviors around, with the Commonwealth around. Are you telling me this is the first time you come across a group that can, and all you're doing is steal? You can't make your own food at this point? You're a waste man. You're a waste man. Like, it's 10, 11 years or whatever it is into the year fall. You haven't figured out how to grow crops. You're a waste man. You haven't figured out how to, tend to yourself, to make supplies for yourself. You're a waste man. If you're still stealing at this point, like, where are you stealing from? Everything was like raxed out in the beginning, where they had all these like offshoot groups of stealing this and stealing that, and running to these shops and stealing all these supplies and stealing from the groups and doing this. And, Negan, of course, was stealing from everybody when he was doing it. But by this point, by this late in the game, you're still doing that? You haven't figured out how to you haven't figured out how to be self-sufficient at this point? Nah, you're a waste man. You're a waste man. Right. So yeah, I just felt like, no, you need a better angle than that. You need a better angle than that. Because at this point, telling me that they were stealing from yours or supplies, that's just not cutting it. That's like, nah, that's not cutting it for me. So yeah, I can see, like I said, I enjoyed it. I felt they still had good stories. I felt they still had some really cool characters, and it still had some really cool action sequences and things like that. And yeah, I know the thing you said about the zombies. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, I know, but I didn't mind that, because end of the day, it's a show. It is what it is. But yeah, there were definitely some parts where I was like, dude, I could see why people left the show. I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it, but I get it. I get it. That felt good. I've been wanting to talk about that for a minute. All right then. Well, let's talk about some things that you did like. I mean, okay, so you watched it for about 6-ish seasons, and then kind of came in and out a little bit after that. What would you say you did like about it? So, especially in the beginning, I guess you were really enjoying it. So, what was it that you felt this show did well?
Well, in the early seasons, I didn't really like it too much. I only liked Shane. And I was all for Shane, except for when he started to lose it a little bit over Lori, because I was like, why the fuck are you? I feel like, if anything, they should have focused. If I was the writer, I would have focused more on Shane just being frustrated with Rick not getting with the picture, getting with the program that, we cannot be this humane person that you're trying to be. You're trying to live a certain life that no longer exists. They should have been focused more on that instead of him going crazy over Lori. I felt like that was cheap. That's one of the, cheapest writing tropes that you could use. Because in the context of it, it just ruins who Shane was as a character. It ruins everything that he was even before he, the zombie apocalypse, because it's like implying as if he's saying fuck the relationship that he had with Rick, that friendship and everything. As long as that's lasted, fuck all that. I just want Lori. And then okay, well, who is Lori? Who is Lori that she's gonna drive this man insane to the point where he's willing to kill his friend for all these years that he thought died before the apocalypse and then came back? And even when he saw Rick again, it was, if I remember correctly, he was kind of like frustrated and he was already showing some crazy signs before he started to really lose it. And I felt like, nah, that's just cheap. Just focus on his frustration. It would have been more painful to see these two friends go at it and you understand why they're going at it rather than, oh yeah, he really likes Lori and also he's crazy. That was cheap. But anyway, I started getting into the show, or really got into the show around the time when Rick had his moments where he was snapping. I think it was I remember 2 moments where he snapped, and I was like, "Yo, Rick is that guy." The first moment was when those fucking guys tried to grab up Carl. I think it was some bikers or something like that.
Oh
And
yeah.
that was like, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think that was the first time Rick actually snapped. And I think he killed them brutally, or killed one of them brutally. I think he bit one of the motherfuckers in the throat or something like that. I remember it was something he did. I was like, oh shit, yes. And I love that. And then the second time was when he almost became a villain in that one community where after he killed I think he had to kill an abusive husband. But it wasn't
That was
that part
Alexandria.
that he snapped. It was something else that happened where he was like pretty much on top of someone and he had a gun in his hand and he was yelling at the people. He's like, "You guys don't get it." And it's pretty much like a parallel of what
That was like a little bit before.
it's what Shane could have been. It's what Shane could have been. I wanted Shane to be like that towards Rick. And he was yelling at them or whatever, and then Michonne had to knock him out. I felt like they ruined that. Like, as exciting as it was, we could have reveled in that moment for a while. Like, let it simmer for a bit. Let Rick walk around with that attitude and talking to people a certain way, and then have Michonne kind of like observe and try to be on the fence about it. Like, okay, he's saying some truth, but is this really the way to go about it? And then she makes a decision. Instead of just he has that moment and then he conked him in the head, and now all of a sudden he's like, all right, you're right, I was acting up. But I think that was the early signs of this show kind of letting me down. But yeah, I really like those 2 moments. Honestly, what kept me going was just pretty much I saw potential in Rick, like his type of character. I loved how he became later on in the seasons. He went from being a character that I couldn't stand to a character that I'm like rooting for, and I trust in what he's saying. I love the way how he would go ahead and speak to the people in his group, how he was supportive of them and everything. I loved it. He wasn't perfect, but I don't want a perfect character. I just want a character that's going to be believable. That's not going to snap me out of it and make me go like, oh yeah, I'm watching the show. Oh yeah, I'm watching the show. I like to just be immersed. And the longer the show went on, for a good while until the writing got pretty bad in my opinion, it was very immersive at times. There were times where I was like sucked into the show. And I wish I could remember more key moments, but honestly, those moments that I just mentioned, those are the ones that stand out after all these years. I still remember that. And I've only watched The Walking Dead once. I never watched The Walking Dead episode more than once.
Speaking of Shane, well, I was something I want to mention now that you mentioned him. But before I do, let me just say this real quick because it's another thing that I got reminded of as well about another BS moment in the show. Before I get into Shane real quick. Towards the end, when Rick goes away, so to speak, when they're not sure if he's alive or dead, the bridge blows up and they're looking for the body. They can't find him because we know, the audience know, we know that Janice took the body to go to that radio people she was contacting with, like this. I think it's a CRM. I did watch one thing. Apparently it ties in with the Fear the Walking Dead and some other spin-offs they did, but it doesn't get mentioned much in the main show. Anyway, she's in contact with these guys and they're looking for like an A person or a B person, and she managed to get them Rick after he's knocked out and takes him away in a helicopter and they fly away. But of course they don't know that, and they're looking for the body, blah 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 blah. They don't know if he's dead, don't know if he's alive. They just can't find a body. But here's the thing. Here's the thing that I just felt like didn't make sense. At no point did anybody be like, "Wait a minute, Janice is gone too." You know, like literally two people disappeared, and at the exact same time, and they're all like, "Well, where's Rick? Where's Rick?" Which is kind of understandable because Rick meant more to them than Janice did. Janice was, relatively new to the group, but it's not that they didn't know her. She had dealings with him from before, and she's only just really new to him being part of the group. But literally two people disappeared at the same time, and at no point they're like, wait a minute, Janice is gone too. And bear in mind that Janice tried to take Father Gabriel, before that, tried to take him. So he knew about that whole, radio contact, whatever. I mean, he would have known necessarily who she was in contact with, but he knew that she was in contact with somebody that wanted something. So at no point they were like, wait a minute, Janice has gone too. And Gabriel could be like, oh yeah, she was like trying to contact somebody about, some A person, B person. And they could be like, well, maybe that's a place to start then. But it's just like, yeah, Rick's gone. Nobody was like, yeah, Janice is gone too. So maybe start there. Like maybe that's a clue. Do you know what I mean? Maybe that's a clue as to what might have happened. But anyway, let's let Shane, because Shane was right. And in terms of how to deal with it, like he was definitely a bit of an arsehole in those early seasons. He was a bit of a prick, no doubt. He wasn't a good guy, but he was right, in terms of how you got to be in that type of world. This is not a world that favors the good guy. In fact, throughout this kind of run, we see that, like Dale being one of the good people in the show, the older guy who's trying to look after Andrea, he ends up getting killed. Tyrese later on, he tried to be a good guy in this world and he ends up getting killed. And Tyrese's death was sad, man. Like they shot that. But, Shane was right. You kind of have to be the kind of arsehole in that world. But in terms of like how they dealt with like Shane and Laurie and that whole relationship, yeah, I'd agree. Like it didn't feel like it held as much gravitas as I think they wanted it to, because if you remember, like in the very beginning, the first two people we see in the show are Shane and Rick, and they sit in that police car, and they're talking and and then they go to deal with that thing. Rick ends up getting shot and he's in the hospital, and then it's like a time skip of I think a few weeks if I remember correctly, but it's a little bit later, and then we got Shane and he's with Laurie and they got the group. Then but at this point we've not seen Laurie at all. You know what I mean? Up until that point, we've not seen Laurie, so we know nothing about her at this point. We don't really know much about any of them, but we certainly know nothing about Laurie at this point. And then Shane and Laurie are together, and it's like, okay, but they're keeping it a secret, and it's like, why? If you think he's dead, why is it a problem? You know what I mean? It just needs to make sense. And I kind of felt like there's a few scenes missing. You know what I mean? Like maybe if it started off with, Rick and Shane in their house, in Rick's house, and maybe you see Carl running around playing, and everybody's all happy, and Laurie's there, and she's like, "Oh, you boys have a good day at work," and maybe they do something at that point that kind of shows or implies that Shane and Laurie have a little thing going on behind Rick's back. Maybe if they did something like that at that point, then by the time Rick's gone and or they think Rick's gone, because they actually did think he was dead at this point. And then you see them together and then they keep it secret. Then it's kind of like, okay, I think it makes more sense now, because even though Rick might be dead, there's kind of a annoying relationship. They got, you know what I mean? But it didn't seem to like make sense as to why you'd keep it secret if you thought he was dead. You know what I mean? And then of course, Rick's not dead. He comes back and then Laurie's just cold. It's like, well, we'll cut it off now then. It's like, all right. Man meant nothing to you then, yeah? All right. Looks after you all that time and you just dump him like he meant nothing to you. It's like, all right. I mean, like I said, Shane was a bit of an arsehole, but he did look after you and he did keep everybody alive. You know what I mean? And you're just going to just cut him loose just like that?
Yep.
That's cold. Cold. cold.
Yep.
But yeah, Shane was right, and he didn't go about it in the way that people needed to hear it to fully understand what he was trying to say. Maybe he was a bit too angry about it, and that's kind of understandable because of the way Laurie was treating him, because he seemingly had genuine feelings for her. Seemingly, I mean, like I said, we don't really see a whole lot to really confirm, but it looks like he genuinely really loved her. And but he was right, and it was like, and yeah, you see Rick becoming more and more like how Shane was as the seasons go on, and more of that guy. And certainly after he makes his first kill, like he just becomes more and more that guy. And even by the time he gets to Negan, and he was talking about like, oh, where they're hilltop, like, yeah, we need help with this guy. And he's like, yeah, we'll kill him. He's not even like, at that point, it's like you're not a cop anymore. And he's fully realized that he's not. This isn't like, oh yeah, we'll give you a chance and they give you a warning and we'll try and talk to you. Like, no, you know now this is what you got to do. So yeah, Shane was right. He was an arsehole, but he was right.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Laurie, going back to her, all I remember is bad things about her. All I remember is not liking that character, hating that character at times. When she died, I felt nothing. And even her death just spawned like a meme with Rick's reaction and everything. Like, there was nothing. There was nothing that, came from Laurie that I was like, yeah, I can understand. No. I felt no sympathy for her. I had no nothing. Like, she was such a waste of a character. She was just there. She was a plot point. She was a plot device, I should say. And that's it. But yeah. Fuck Laurie. I just wanted to add that real quick.
Yeah. Well, Shane did really. So they had little baby Judith, which she then pretended to be Rick's child when she knew it wasn't Rick's kid. And I thought Rick knew it wasn't his kid, but at that point, this is too late. This is too late.
Yeah, I mean, he admitted it during one of his hallucinations with Shane. Like, he knew that it was, it wasn't his.
Yeah. Well, she needs a daddy. As a matter of fact, she gets abandoned quite a bit, actually. So she never knows her real dad or her real mum, for that matter. Because they both died before Shane was dead before she was born, and then Laurie dies when she's born. So she never knows her actual real biological parents. Then she's being raised by Rick, and then later on, sort of Rick and Michonne are raising her together, and Michonne becomes like a sort of mother to her. Rick ends up disappearing because he gets blown up. Not his fault, but it happens. Okay, so that's another parent figure that's left there. And then Michonne goes off to look for Rick. Now, this is another bit as well that it didn't make no damn sense. I can understand Michonne saying, okay, I've seen something that suggests that Rick is still alive and I need to go try and find out what's going on. That makes sense. But to be gone for as long as she was gone, I was like, no, you've got a child at home. You've got Judith and also RJ, that the child she has with Rick. So she's got two kids at home, and you're gone. You're just gone. Like, you haven't come back for the next like 2-3 seasons. You're just gone. And then it's like, okay, so you've left them in care of like Daryl. He's he's doing what he can. But then he ends up leaving. He ends up leaving to go look for them. So it's like, why do all these why their parents or figures keep abandoning them? Like, what's going on? What's wrong with what's so bad about Judith and RJ that their parents keep just leaving them? Like, the people who are supposed to be in charge of them and raising them just keep leaving. Like, Rick. Okay, Rick. Granted, Rick wasn't his fault, but Michonne, she had a choice. She went to look for Rick, cool. But there's a point where you're like, okay, I've looked for him, I couldn't find him, I need to get back. She's just gone. And then she stops radio calling. Because there was like a bit where she was kept in radio contact with Judith. And then that stopped. Like, and then, okay, so you've got Daryl. Daryl's looking after them. Daryl's doing what he can. But then in fact, Daryl left twice because he was gone for a while to look for like Rick and Michelle, and then he couldn't find him. He comes back. Then he's looking after the kids, and then he goes off again in the final season. So he just abandoned these kids after their mother abandoned them, after their daddy got taken away, after they never knew their real like people keep abandoning these kids. What's going on? They're not grown up to be well-adjusted people, is what I'm saying. Like, these kids are grown up to be serial killers, is what I'm saying. Like, they're grown up to have like they're the type of people you're gonna hear about in like 10 years. They're probably like the next Negans at that point. You know what I mean? They're not having a good life. They're not having a good life. But yeah,
I mean, the real reason behind it is because like they just wanted to do the spin-off shows.
Oh yeah,
at one point they wanted to do a movie with Andrew Lincoln, but that fell through. So then they decided to make it into a show, and we don't know when that's coming out just yet. I mean,
I believe
if they announced
already,
it,
actually.
I'm unaware.
I think it might be out already.
Michonne and Rick.
Yeah, I know. I recently got access to some extra stuff that I haven't watched yet. Like the Penguin, by the way, is on this. Is on this. I do want to get to that. But yeah, The Walking Dead. I was looking it up, and this service that I got, Walking Dead: The Ones Who Live. That's what it's called. Yeah. They're series 1 episodes up to 6 episodes. Yeah, they're out already. Sky Max if you're in the UK. I don't know where they are in other parts of the world. But yeah, they are out already. They're about an hour each episode, and there's 6 episodes for season 1. Wow. They may even do a season 2. Who knows?
I don't hear anybody talking about it.
You have it? Well, sorry.
But yeah, I haven't heard anyone talking about it.
All right,
so that's not good.
I mean, it's probably not. But yeah. I might watch it eventually. But
the plan after the movie, and then after.
I was just saying, I'm not in any particular rush to see it, but yeah, maybe eventually I get to it.
Yeah. But yeah, that became the plan after the movie fell through, and then they decided to do some more spinoffs. And they're just trying, like the milk has already run dry. The cow has fallen. The cow is dead, but they're still trying to pump something out. And that's what it's like. They have like 3 spinoff shows right now, and they're is desperate. You got Negan and Maggie, Daryl, and no, it's just Daryl, and then of course Rick and Michonne. So those are the 3 spinoffs right now that's supposed to be going on. And like you said, the Rick and Michonne thing is going on now, and I haven't heard anyone. It's so crazy because usually, even when I wasn't into The Walking Dead, I would see people reacting to the episodes and everything. And that's even how I found out about the whole, oh yeah, Rick is gonna leave. Rick is gonna leave, and they kind of built it up to like, oh, Rick is gonna die at the end, and it turned out being some stupid shit that happened. Even Jadis Jadis as a fucking character, she sucks. She's ass. I don't like any aspect of her. Trash character. Character.
She was in charge of trash
people. Terrible writing.
She was literally in charge of like the trash people in that junkyard. So yeah, that's pretty accurate.
Yeah. But just I really don't like that. It's such a bad character. It's such a bad trope. How she came up with the whole broken English in just a couple of years into the fucking apocalypse. All of a sudden, her mindset is all different to come up with a new language and everything. It was just fucking stupid. Even back then, it was fucking stupid. But yeah, and now all of a sudden, fast forward where now she should have the whole new language. She's speaking perfect English. Like, hey, I got him right here. The fuck?
Yeah. She pretty much dropped
Yo,
that when the
yeah.
whole group disappeared. So like, yeah, the whole group gets slaughtered, and she pretty much drops that whole thing right there. But yeah, that I mean, I don't strictly speaking mind it so much, but yeah, you're right. It wasn't necessary. It wasn't necessary. Like unless of course it's like that's how you speak anyway, and in which case it's like, why aren't you still speaking that way? Like, what I mean? It was clearly an act. The fact that she just dropped it, so it's like, what was the point of that act? Like, all right. It's like when Kofi Kingston all of a sudden lost his Jamaican accent. It's like, what was the point? What was the point? Like, if you're not going to keep it up, just don't bother.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of there's 3 spin-offs, which is quite a lot of spin-offs actually. I mean, there's The Walking Dead The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon, which season 2 features Carol. I've not watched these, by the way, just from what I've heard of them. But season 2 features Carol of that. There's The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live. That's the one with Michonne and Rick. And then The Walking Dead Dead City, which is the one with Negan and Maggie, which is the most unlikely team up, but oh well. Apparently that one is set quite some years later, though. I was watching one video where they do like the recaps and stuff, and then they talked a little bit about those spin-offs on the video, and they mentioned that it's set something like 5-6 years later or something like that. So it's not, I guess, right away, and I guess something happens in that time where they're willing to work together. I don't know, but yeah, it's not. It's set in the future. Like a few years into the future. Daryl Dixon seems to be getting some decent reviews. I mean, I haven't paid too much attention to it, but just heard a few good things about it. And certainly it's been picked up for a second season, so I guess they're doing something right, But yeah, I haven't watched that. And then The Ones Who Live, I've not watched that either, so can't say too much about it. But the kind of premise of it feels a bit like, I'm not sure I care. Like, you know what I mean? The fact, like I was saying before, like the fact that Michonne went off to look for him makes sense. The fact that she just stayed away for so long doesn't. I don't know. Maybe this explains why she stayed away for so long. Maybe something happened. Maybe, but it just felt like, yeah, I'm not sure I care. But I don't know. Maybe I've got access to it now, so maybe I'll check him out. Maybe. No promises. Yeah. And then there was, of course, another, speaking of spin-offs, there's actually quite a lot of spin-offs. I didn't even realize, but there's actually quite a lot of Walking Dead spin-offs. There's like some smaller ones called things like, I can't remember, there was Fear the Walking Dead, which was ran for like 7 or 8 seasons or something like that. But then there was some smaller ones, which I think were like these mini episodes they did from time to time. I didn't even know about them until I was watching that, until I watched the recap. And it mentioned some of them, but there was quite a lot of Walking Dead spin-offs over the years that featured, different characters and focused on different things. And yeah, the timeline's a mess. All right, but let's talk about a couple of characters here and there, though. Who was your favorite? Who was your favorite character? Let's start with your favorite character. It becomes your worst character in a little bit. Who was your favorite character out of the bits that you watched? Your favorite character and why?
My favorite character has to be Rick. It would have been Negan, but they kind of, after he did the whole Glenn and Abraham thing, they kind of pushed him to the side, and he had a few moments where he was still Negan, but then it was just pretty much holding him off until he would fight Rick again and then get the throat slit. And then he turns into this kind of passive guy. And he has one moment where he becomes Negan again, quote unquote, but it's not really Negan. It's good guy Negan. And that's when he has that fight with Alpha.
Yeah.
But, we didn't get to see that shit-eating, grinning Negan too much. And then for whatever reason, they had him shave off his beard and everything. That was an awkward phase. I know that's the look in the comics, but honestly, the way how they had him when he first appeared was perfect. I don't know whoever did that. If I was a producer or whatever, whoever made that decision, they would have been fired. he would have been fired immediately. I don't care. I don't want to hear any excuses. I don't know. I know that may be like an out of nowhere odd thing to say, but it just threw me off. It fucked up the whole get up. It's like Michael Jackson without the sparkling glove or the fucking hat or something, or the sparkling socks. But yeah, so yeah, if it's not Rick, I would say Negan, but for a very short time.
Okay.
How
about your worst character then? Who did you like the least?
I mean, Lori.
just straight up. Like, don't have to think about that one. It's like, yeah, Lori, easy.
Yeah. Yeah. If not Lori, then I would say I forgot her name. I think it was Andrea.
Oh yeah,
was dating the governor at one point.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say her. And if not her, then the little fucking kid. Well, both of them actually. When Rick killed the husband and then he started dating the chick.
Oh yeah,
she had 2 kids.
Yeah.
And one kid was a pussy, and the other kid was like all spiteful and angry because his abusive dad was killed.
Yeah.
So yeah, those 2 kids. And oh yeah, Glenn. I don't like Glenn. I do not like Glenn. I only like Glenn for one moment, and that was when he was in that fucking riot gear and saving people. I thought that moment was badass.
Okay.
That's it.
For me, I think my favorite character, I'm going to go with Tyrese as my favorite character. Well, certainly one of my favorite characters. Mainly because, like, as I was saying before, like, he was trying to be a good guy in a bad world, right? And he definitely did some stuff where it didn't make sense, like when he had the opportunity to kill that guy from the walls and he didn't, but then he told people that he killed him, and that was a bad move, but he was trying to be a good guy in this bad world, right? And I appreciate that. It's not a smart choice. And like I said before, Shane was right. But I appreciate that he was trying. And even when, his girlfriend gets killed and then he finds out that it was Carol that killed her, and he forgave her. And it was just kind of like this moment of like, that took a lot of strength. It's a type of thing where it's like, I would like to be that forgiving. And maybe one day I can be. But that's why he's my favorite character, because I just kind of felt like he represented something that I would like to try and get to. Where you're always trying to be the good guy, even no matter how tough it gets, no matter how hard it gets. And even if it costs you, things, you're always going to be the good guy. Like I said, Shane was right. I'm not taking that back. But I just appreciate that he was really trying his best, even when it didn't benefit him, to be that good guy in this horrible, horrible world. So yeah, I'm going to go with Tyrese as my favorites. Least favorite, I mean, it probably would be Andrea as well amongst my least favorite, just because, like, I mean,
yeah,
I just kind of felt like, I don't know if it was just the way the character was written or what, but she just seemed to, like, there was times where she seemed a little bit like too eager to get it to too eager to, like, go fight zombies or whatever. And it's like, why are you trying to get yourself killed? You know what I mean? There's like things like that. And just the whole thing about, like, not really listening to Michonne, when Michonne was the one that helped her out when she got separated from a group. And granted, I get that you want to, you're kind of in this world where you see this guy and everything looks great and you want to believe it. But at the same time, it's like, you don't know this guy. You don't know these people. You do know that Michonne had your back when literally nobody else did, So it's kind of like, yeah. I get why you want it to work. I get why you want to stay, but come on, man. That's like, you can't. Well, anyway, it's who knows? Maybe in that situation, I might do the same thing. Maybe I'd be to wanting to believe the governor that I might do the same thing. But I just kind of felt like, stick with Michonne. Come on, like, stick with Michonne. I know this looks nice. This looks great. And it gets you away from all the horrible things that you're trying to escape from. But at the same time, it's like, can you really trust somebody you just met? And the first time you saw him, he was like, actually, no, to be fair, he was shooting the dead people, but then that, because they didn't know that, you still turn after death. So that looked a bit odd. So to be fair, that wasn't so bad. But the point is, like, at this point, you don't really know much about him. You don't know if he's a good guy or a bad guy. It seems nice. I get it, but stick with Michonne. Come on, man. Don't be dumb. Don't be dumb. So yeah, probably Andrew, I think, as a least favorite. And I mean, the kids were kids. I can't be mad at kids. Yeah, they're acting a bit silly, and especially like the youngest kid who ended up getting them killed. But at the same time, it's like, they're kids. You can't expect kids to act like grown-ups, because they're not. And even the kid who was like pissed off that Rick killed his dad, even though the dad was abusive, it's like, I get it, because end of the day, like, he might have been abusive, but that's still your dad. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like, he's not looking at it from a perspective of, oh, he stopped the abuse for me. He's looking at it from the perspective of, like, it's a toxic love situation. Like, the man was abusing you, but you still loved him. So, like, I get it from that perspective of, like, Rick still killed your dad, and even though your dad was an arsehole, and you knew your dad was an arsehole, it's not like a secret. He's not stupid. He knows what's going on. But Rick still killed him. And that's hard to just kind of get past, because as abusive as his dad was, he was still your dad and you still loved him. So, yeah, I get it. I'm not saying he made the right choice, but I get it. So that to me just made sense in terms of how he was acting and how those kids were acting. So I don't mind that. Who's the other guy, though? Eugene kind of was up and down for me in terms, because he was funny at times, so there was times where I kind of I liked the character. He was kind of funny. Other times he was just downright stupid. And I felt like they forgave him too quickly after he joined Negan's group, because when he joined Negan's group, he didn't join them because he had a plan to trick Negan. He joined them because he was on board with Negan. And I just felt that after that, they just forgave him too quickly. And then, oh, now they're friends again. And it's like, now I'm in love with Rosita again. It's like, oh, shut up. Like, but the girl don't like you, move on. You know what I mean? Oh, now I'm in love with this girl. Yeah. Like, this girl on the radio was like, sure, flipping out. Like, come on, man. Risked his whole crew to get some pussy. Like, dude, come on. Like, come on, man. I was like, I mean, I get it, in terms of like, okay, it's been a while. In fact, I think they did say he was a virgin. So it's like, I get it. You're trying to get someone. Maybe this is your only chance. So I'm not even mad at the fact that he wanted it, but come on, man. You're really going to risk. If you want it that bad, go on your own. Don't put other people's lives in jeopardy. Certainly, like, let them know why you're doing it before you let them come along with you to say, just say to them, look, I've been speaking to this girl on the radio, and I think she likes me. I'm trying to get laid, dude. And I just want to go over there. If you want to come, cool. But come knowing that this is why I'm going. I'm asking you to come so you can help me get laid. Like, just let them know is what I'm saying. Let them know. Don't be all like, oh, they can get us help and blah, blah, blah. And, but just let them know. I'm trying to get laid, dude. There might be some help in it. Maybe they might be able to help us out. There could be a trap, but personally, I'm just trying to get laid. So if you want to come, cool. If not, I understand. I'll go on my own, because for me, I'm trying to get some. It's been a while. I'm trying to get some. Just be honest is what I'm saying. Be honest with the people that are risking their lives that are coming with you. So yeah, yeah, he was just kind of up and down for me. But I did like the way he talks, though. I can't lie. I like the way he talked. Just that is he used a lot of like these like metaphors and similes, and a lot of it is like I guess just it was like a thing where even though he used a lot of phrases that I don't think I've heard before, I totally understood what he was saying most of the time. Like 99% of the time, I'm like, I get you. I get you. So yeah, I like the way he talked. But yeah, he was just up and down, and maybe a bit more down towards the end.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have too many opinions on Eugene. I barely remember his plot points. I just remember that he used to watch Abraham and Rosita have sex. I remember that,
Yeah.
like, as far as his weird side.
Yeah. Oh, he was a weirdo. Yeah, he
Um,
was a weirdo.
but yeah, I remember liking him for some other, his other stuff or whatever, like how smart he was. I didn't like when Rosita was bossing him around to make that fucking bullet. I hated that. Hated that. I do remember that actually ruined her character for me for a while. Um, I think for the rest of the time that I watched the show, I didn't like her character because she was just fucking bullying him. Um, yeah, I
Yeah,
do
he
not
deserved it.
like Rosita.
I mean, she let him watch
I mean,
she let him watch her have sex because she thought he had the cure for the whole thing. Turns out that was a lie. So yeah, he deserved it. He deserved it.
mm,
He got to look at her
okay.
titties,
Well,
and they didn't cure the disease. So it's like you saw my titties. You don't have to cure the disease. You owe me practically. So yeah, he deserved it. He deserved it. I'm just saying, if she's gonna let him look at her titties and let him watch her getting dicked out, and then all on the basis that he had this cure and they had to get him someplace, and it turns out that was a lie. It's like, wait a minute, you got something from me? uh uh So yeah, he deserved it. He deserved it.
but yeah, um, yeah. As far as other than that, Eugene was, Eugene was okay.
Hmm.
I wasn't really like, I don't know. There were a lot of times where he just felt like he was just there. You know,
Hmm.
yeah. I could barely remember things about him besides that. His quirkiness, how smart he was. Um, I do remember him being with Negan and them, but I don't remember, exactly how it went down. I do remember this cool plot point because I don't remember exactly all the details about it, but I do remember being interested in it.
Hmm.
Where Negan's wives or girlfriends or whatever, um, sh- what was it? They were trying to convince Eugene to make this like basically make fuck, what's the name of
Oh yeah, it was a
that shit,
poison.
that cyanide.
Yeah, they
They
were
were
trying to
asking
get
him to
poison
make
to
cyanide,
yeah.
so that was cool.
Yeah, they said it was for one of their
Yeah, so I thought that was cool.
sisters to try and she was like depressed and went to make something so she can take it herself, but it was actually they were intending on actually giving it to Negan, and then but he made one for Sasha, who ended up taking it and killing herself inside a coffin, and yeah, no, I remember that. I remember that. I say another one of my
Yeah,
favorite characters towards the end. So this person would have came in maybe a couple of seasons after you stopped watching. Was a character called Connie. Connie, as a deaf person, and she was hanging out. She got introduced with a whole group of people. So it was Connie, her sister Kelly, and then there was Yumiko, Luke, and another girl whose name I'm blanking on right now. But there was a group of them that all came at the same time. And Connie for me was the most interesting because yeah, she was deaf, and I just thought like the idea of somebody who's surviving it in this post-apocalyptic world, who's deaf, who literally cannot hear, the zombies coming when they're about to attack, makes a really interesting character. And the most interesting parts with her, in my opinion, were the parts where she was on her own, because you kind of watched it like she's deaf, she can't hear them coming. She's kind of in this place where things are behind her and she can't hear it, and it just adds to the intensity. So yeah, I feel like Connie was definitely for me one of the more interesting characters of the series. Certainly one of the more interesting characters that they introduced towards the end. But at the same time, yet the character Kelly, who played her sister, kind of felt a bit like you said with Eugene. Sometimes he just felt it was just there. That's kind of like how Kelly was. Like they didn't really do a whole lot with Kelly outside of translating for Connie. And I get why you have a character who translates because, generally most people don't speak sign language. So it makes sense for it to have a translator type character. But it's also like, can you have another reason to be here outside of just translating? You know what I mean? Like, what is it that you want to do? What are you trying to achieve? What are your goals? And especially when it gets to Commonwealth and it's like, Connie becomes a reporter because that's what she did before the fall. So they gave her the job as a reporter. But it's like, okay, so what was Kelly doing before the fall? But Kelly's just there translating for Connie. It's like, all right, so you were just translating? Like, what, what do you do? Like, what, you know what I mean? Like, it just felt like, I get the reason why we need a translator. We need a translator, fine, but can this person have a life outside of just being a translator? You know what I mean? It just did it. Yeah, that kind of was like, come on. Like, there's a whole person here, and especially when it's like the parts where Connie wasn't around and Kelly was on her own. All she did was cry. It's like, I get it. Okay, your sister's away. You're upset. Fine. But you know what I mean? Can we develop a character now? Can we actually give her a character outside of just like, when Connie's not around, you just cry, and when Connie's there, you just translate. Like, dude, come on. So yeah, I feel like they messed that up. They messed that up. But but Connie, personally, for me, I just felt was a really interesting character, and I kind of wish there were more parts with her. Where she would just be like whether on her own or things come, that kind of that kind of thing that just builds intensity, But yeah, Connie was a good character. I liked her a lot.
I vaguely remember watching some stuff with the with that character, and that had to be one of the moments where like I either watched clips on YouTube or whatever, or watch somebody review an episode or something like that. And I remember thinking, like, I felt the opposite than you. Like, I hear what you're saying and you make a lot of great points. For me, I think it's dumb. It's dumb as hell. It actually speaks down on the characters that got, like, your favorite character, Tyrese. It speaks down on him because it's like, if a deaf character that can't hear these motherfuckers could go ahead and survive all this time, all these years,
right, and you can't, yeah.
But this motherfucker that should be on edge, he gets bit just randomly inside the room. Like, you're not gonna hear that kid rummaging through the fucking bedroom and just bite you like that. And I mean, he took a whole chunk of his arm off. Like, it was just ridiculous. But real quick, now that I'm talking about that, I just remembered another death scene. For the guy who played Everybody Hates Chris.
Oh yeah.
I remember laughing a lot with a family member about his death at the time, because
his death was you laughed? Oh, you sick, twisted individual.
He was with Glenn. So when he was with Glenn, he told Glenn, "Don't let go." And Glenn lets go.
But he had to.
In The Talking Dead, after the episode, but still, in The Talking Dead, he ends up saying, like, the guy who plays Glenn, he's like, yeah, I think when he said to Glenn, "Don't let go," he meant, metaphorically, he meant don't let go of hope, don't let go of trying, and don't let go of. He said all this inspirational shit, and I'm like, nah, that nigga just said don't let go. Like, you about to let me get devoured by these fucking zombies? He ain't thinking about you in the future. He don't give a shit about that. He's trying to survive and get away from these fucking zombies. And they don't even let him have a quick death. No, they tore his ass up. And the entire time,
suffered.
I remember he had his face against the fucking glass.
Yeah, I remember that.
They tore his ass up. Yeah. And he and fucking Glenn just sitting there watching. Like, hell nah. Yo.
Yeah, Stephen Ewan. I'll just look it up.
That
Stephen
shit was
Ewan.
Crazy. I remember that.
So that's what he's saying, yeah. Oh, he meant metaphorically. Like, nah, he meant don't let go of my hand. Like, pull me out of here, get me, help me. That's what he meant.
Exactly.
But yeah, no, that death was I mean, I remember that he was just screaming and he was just scared and he had a limp as well. So like, he He was like trying to get away. Oh, bruh, yeah,
Yeah.
I remember that. And it was the guy from I
You
can't
know,
remember
this
this
is a
dude's
little
name, but it was that guy
controversial to
who
say,
ended up
but
getting scared.
I feel like
Yeah, so what was that?
what I was gonna say is I think, it's a little controversial to say, but for me personally, I'm just, I just have to say it just to say it. Otherwise, I'm gonna be dishonest.
All right.
And it's something I've always said. And of course, people might disagree or whatever. I don't care. This is just strictly my opinion. I remember watching The Walking Dead when I was, when I was a fan and I was watching that. I felt some type of way how like every time when they had a character that was black, right? And it was like not just a reoccurring character, but one of the, the side characters that would be in almost every episode. It's like every time when they had one too many, all of a sudden a black character would die.
Mm.
So like they brought in Everybody Hates Chris, Tyrese dies. But then when they brought in Tyrese, if I'm not mistaken, because it's been so long that I've seen it, I'm not sure about this part, but when they brought in Tyrese, T Dog dies, and they do this quite a few times if you pay attention, because I do remember, I can't remember exact details, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can't tell you exact. Oh yeah, this character dies, this character dies, this character dies, but I remember. I think even the fucking guy. I forgot what his name was in the show, but he was the one that was like tainted meat. When the cannibals went to eat him, right? But he was already bit.
Oh yeah,
He
yeah, yeah,
dies.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it's
And
funny. It
it's
was like
almost like
Sessions'
every time
boyfriend
when
for a
they
bit.
introduce, they have too many black people on the screen. They're like, hold on, we gotta kill
Um,
somebody off, and
I mean,
it just happens to be a black guy.
there's probably
The
truth to
only
that,
exception
but
being
okay.
Michonne, and yeah, the only exception being Michonne and the other guy that I think his name is Morgan, but Morgan again he doesn't count because he's not a reoccurring well he's a reoccurring character, but
He
he's
was
not a
in and out
side
a bit.
character. He's not
Yeah,
like
he was
a
in and out a
character
bit.
that's going to be on every episode.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's like once in a blue moon, so
but I
he
think
doesn't count.
to be fair,
Michonne, they ain't gonna kill her off, but
yeah, I mean T Dog wasn't really a side character though. I mean, granted, he wasn't really in the main lead story parts, but he wasn't really a side character. I mean, he was there. In fact, it was like because of him they had the whole
no.
thing with Mel.
When I say side character, what I'm specifically meaning is um characters that are not like the main character, like the main character being Rick, right? He's the main character.
Yeah,
Then you got the antagonist, and then I'm just talking about like the side characters, as in like these are characters that are on the show just about every episode, but they're on the side. They're not the main character. Like
right.
we're
Okay, no,
not
fair,
gonna be
fair.
focused directly on them. You know what I mean? Yeah. But yeah, it seemed like at the time when I was watching, almost every time when they had too many black guys on the screen, one of the motherfuckers had to go. And it was just timing, and I don't know. I'm quite sure I'm not the only person to talk about it, but either way, like I said, the reason why I wanted to talk about it was because that was something that I remember from back then
Yeah.
for sure. That shit never left, and I would be so dishonest if I didn't bring it up, even if that may not be the case. Maybe it's a coincidence, whatever
Mm.
the case may be. But that's how I felt, and that's how I still feel. I still feel that way.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably some truth to that in terms of like deaths and dying. I remember that a lot of those characters that didn't make it through in the end, so it's not untrue. But I think, to be fair, a lot of people die in the show. White guys, black guys, Asian, like side characters, main characters. Like a lot of people die in the show. So, I mean, in terms of timing, I mean, yeah, that's probably about right. But yeah, it's
I
hard.
say this.
I
I
don't know if
say
it's hard to say
this.
that's a
I, I,
deliberate
I
thing.
heard that
It's
argument before. No, I heard that argument
But
before.
then again,
But think about it this way: have you ever seen 3 to 4 black guys on the screen on Walking Dead?
3 or 4.
3 or 4 black guys on the screen on The Walking Dead.
I mean, how many black guys are in The Walking Dead? Let's see. There was
And I'm
T-Dog.
talking like like main characters, side characters, right there, like from our group, not from the running into another group, but I'm talking about from our group,
Okay, so
Rick's
let's.
group.
Okay, so we got. Let's see. Then we got
No,
T-Dog. We got.
but you
Let me just go for the
four
names, and
white
then we'll try and
guys.
figure it out. Because
No,
it's
on
a
the
lot. It's a
screen at the
lot
same
to
time.
kind of like, a
No,
lot
I'm
of
talking about on
seasons. So
the
let's.
screen at the same time.
I know, but let's just try and go for them and see like who we got.
No,
So
I'm talking about.
yeah, I know what you mean. Like at the same time. But let's go through them and see what we got. So there was T-Dog. So T-Dog, when T-Dog was there, I think he was the only black guy there. If I remember correctly, I think he was the only black guy when T-Dog was there. Then let's see, there was one black guy who was a prisoner. So there was T-Dog and a prisoner at the same time. Along with a Hispanic character, but you just said black specifically, so I guess we're not counting him. But yeah, they died. The prisoner gets killed. In fact, no, there was a third black guy. I think. Anyway, I might be misremembering. Anyway, so yeah, after T-Dog, there was like Sasha and Tyrese. I think they were the only 2 black guys on the show at that time, in terms of like sort of main area. So there's 2. They were brothers and sister. Sasha dies after. Yeah, Sasha died after Tyrese. There was Tyrese, Sasha, and then the guy who gets killed. They were together at one time. And then there was when they met. Everybody hates Chris. I'm forgetting his name right now as well. But I can't remember. I don't think they're all on screen together at the same time. But then, yeah, everybody hates Chris. He was, I guess, more of a lesser character. And then after that, let's see. I think that's because Sasha, I think, lasts up until Negan, and then Connie. Well, Connie and Kelly, they come in. Was anybody before that? I might be blanking on somebody, but yeah, Connie and Kelly come in a bit later and got along with Yumiko. But again, yeah, Yumiko, not black, Japanese, but ethnic minority. Right. We claim her. And then Negan ends up with a black girlfriend by the end of it. So, I mean, there's some representation there. Maybe it's not perfect, but there's some decent representation out there.
I'm not talking about that. I specifically asked if we see 3 to 4 black guys on the screen at the same time in the main group.
I think
it's not about having black people on the show. In fact, if we want to go ahead and talk about that, that's a whole different conversation. Yeah. But there should be even more black people in the show if we're going to talk about that, because they're in Georgia. Okay. I'm not trying to say, Georgia's predominantly black, but there are a lot of black people.
There's a lot of zombies. Some of them are black. Does that count? The black zombies, or the black people got taken over by the zombie virus. Maybe that's what happened in Georgia. that's how they get around it. They're like, well, the black guys they got the zombie virus, so that's how we got around it. Only the select few managed to survive.
So the fact that they even have,
Morgan. I forgot Morgan.
I could go ahead and easily tell you. I can easily tell you whenever they have like four white guys on the screen, Rick, Shane, Dale, fucking Daryl, Meryl. The list goes on, and even when some of them go away or some of them die or whatever, they get replaced with another white guy. All I'm saying is, I've noticed that.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying some big conspiracy. I'm not saying the showrunners are racist and all that. I'm just saying it's kind of funny, and not funny, haha, but funny weird. That every time there's quite too many dark faces on the screen, specifically black men, next thing you know, one of them got to go.
Yeah,
it's just crazy. Like, if we're talking about in a group setting, how come it's always like one black guy joins and another black guy dies? How come they can't both or 3 of them survive for a couple of seasons together? It's just odd. So yeah, I feel like, me as somebody that was into the show, dedicating hours every week, waiting for the next season, just like everybody else at the time, and being a fan just like everybody else, I can't sit here and not mention that. That was
Hmm.
something that I really noticed back then.
Yeah,
And I
no,
mean,
for sure.
I'm over it. You know, I'm not angry about it. I'm not sitting here seething and be like, how dare they? I don't
Yeah.
give a shit. But I give a shit enough to,
Well, it's got to be mentioned, and then
definitely
if
remember and
if it was
mention.
noticed, it should be mentioned. And I mean, the reality is that there could possibly been some decisions being made behind the scenes that we're not privy to. Like it wouldn't be the first time stuff like that has happened, and we're certainly not um
Mhm.
naive to the fact that certain groups of people are disparaged against, so to speak, or is that what, or discriminated against, so to speak, and especially like this show started what 2010, so yeah, it's not an unthinkable thing that could have happened. Like some executives or some higher ups are like, oh, damn it, we've taken on too many. So that's one of us got to go. We've taken on too many. We don't want to lose our demographic down in I don't know Ohio, whatever. So it's possible, right? And so yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, I can't say that's something I noticed while watching it. Now that you've mentioned it, I'm thinking about it, and yeah, it's probably about right that certain characters were gone at least either at the same time or shortly after as another character was introduced. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah, man.
You got too many dark faces. Damn it, we're gonna have to change this lighting setup. Or we could just get rid of one of them. Yeah. Damn it, you're gonna have to
Listen,
employ
it could
more
be any
makeup
number of
artists.
reasons.
Or we
I
could just
just
get rid of
know
one of them.
it's happens way too many times for a coincidence.
But no, for sure. For sure. Um any other coincidences you notice, or is that the one?
Nah, that's the one. That's the one that I definitely noticed.
Yeah, I'm not sure this counts as a coincidence. Certainly not to the level of that anyway. But one thing I did spot about the show is that there are quite a lot of British actors in it. Um, the main character Rick, played by a British actor. Um, Morgan, played by a British actor. Morris. Oh, there's a real name. Flipping out. The governor, played by a British actor. And a few others that I'm blanking on right now. I think Maggie as well is maybe British heritage or something like that. But yeah, there's quite a few British actors in the show. And it's kind of like what I was saying the other day about British actors play Americans better than Americans play Americans. And I think maybe the Walking Dead kind of took that as well, because like, yeah, there's quite a few British actors in there. I mean, for me, it's not an issue, of course, because whatever, like, it is what it is. But I mean, do you find that as, say, as an American watching the show, knowing that a lot of the lead, or quite a significant number of the lead roles are played by British actors, is that something that you care about, something that bothers you, or is like whatever, who cares? I don't. How do you feel about that?
I mean, if they're good enough to where I didn't even know, then I don't care. It's like when Idris Elba played Stringer Bell in The Wire. Like I didn't know Idris Elba at the time was British when I first watched that show. I had no idea. His mannerisms and everything was natural. I didn't know the guy that starred in Get Out. I didn't know he was British until well after. So the only time it becomes a problem is if you could tell that, yeah, something's not right about this. If they don't have the accent right or the mannerisms, everything. If it comes off natural and you're doing a good job, and I'm not even, and I'm surprised when you reveal that you're British, then it's no problem at all. I only have a problem with it if it becomes an issue, because there's a lot
Mm.
of actors anywhere from the UK, from the US that are bad, but um, if you're doing your job, you're doing good. I don't give a fuck where you're from.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much how I kind of look at it. Like, I mean, I actually knew Andrew Lincoln was a British actor because I seen him in a show that was over here called Teachers. I don't watch a lot of it, but see a bit of it, so I knew. But at the same time, when I watched The Walking Dead, I totally forgot, and like, because I feel like his accent was he did it so well that I actually forgot that I'd seen him in another show. And then, I was watching an interview of him, and I was like, oh yeah, But yeah, he played that. I think he played that. At least to my ears, anyway, as a British person watching it, like right. But to my ears, he did that accent really well. And yeah, a lot of the times I didn't know some of the actors were British until I maybe looked it up afterwards. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah. Like I said, if they're good enough to the point where you don't even notice, hey, what is what it is. They clearly doing something right, to get the role, and did it right and enough to even trick people into thinking that, they're not from where they're from, or not that they're not from where their character's from. Is what? Yeah, I think you know what I meant.
Yeah.
All right. We've got to talk about Carol and Daryl. I think Carol was an interesting character for me because of her beginnings, being the battered housewife and, very kind of meek in the beginning of the series. And then by the end of it, she's a very hardened badass. She kills who she has to kill. She even killed a child at one point, which was like, oof, that whole scene. Look at it. Look at the flowers, Lizzie? Just look at the flowers. Oof. But her character is maybe one of the most changed throughout the series. And of course, she has a friendship with Daryl. And Daryl goes with a bit of a change as well. But Daryl, I feel like, in the beginning, he was, it was Mel's brother. And he was kind of it wasn't really, I guess you could say he was a bit of a lovable arsehole in the beginning with Daryl. He wasn't really a likable character in the sense that he wasn't trying to make friends, and he's a bit of a loner, even though he was with the group. He liked to kind of just go off and by himself and that kind of thing. But then as the seasons progress, when he develops that relationship with Carol, where they become really close friends, and even between him and Rick, where they become like brothers, so he goes from this kind of like arsehole loner type person to, maybe a little bit less of an arsehole, but still a loner type person, What was your thoughts on Carol? Because I think by the time Carol makes some of those major changes, would have been before you stopped watching. So, what was your thoughts on Carol and Daryl, and in particular Carol, from what you watched?
For Carol, I liked her growth as a character, going from the battered housewife, when she had that fucking piece of shit husband or whatever. And then she was mourning the death of her daughter. She went from being this weak character to being a character that stood on her feet and everything and started to fight back. Usually that trope is done bad, but I don't remember that being the case with Carol. I can't say that for sure. Maybe I'll have a different opinion if I were to watch it again. But based on what I remember them doing it well with her. So as far as like what she was doing later on in the show, I know at one point she got a little ridiculous later on, but I liked Carol a lot. She used to be one of my favorite characters when I was watching for a good while, up until a certain point. I can't remember what point I stopped liking her. But it definitely wasn't the whole her killing the kid. Her killing the kid, she should have, I wouldn't have even fucking shown any mercy or whatever. Just got it, because in that setting, in the context of the situation and the setting and everything and the type of world that they're living in, without hesitation, it would have been an elimination, like immediately, because that little girl, she was fucking sick.
She was
That's the
she
one
killed,
that
yeah.
killed her sister and everything, because
She was dangerous. She was
yeah,
dangerous.
I would first off, I remember thinking like it was, already a risk having her around, or even leaving her alone with her sister. Even before, I'm not gonna say I foresaw her killing her sister, because I don't remember that part. But I do remember being like, if I was in that position, I would have never left them alone by themselves, because I'd be like, I would have thought that she tried to. I remember thinking at the time she would bring her sister along to try to talk to a zombie or play with a zombie, and then if she gets bit, then she'll bite her sister. I thought about things like that. I didn't think about her killing her sister. Um, So yeah, I would have never left them out my sight if I was Carol, but it is what it is. And yeah, I I would have immediately shot her. Immediately.
Well,
I
you gotta
wouldn't
go.
she wouldn't even really get to explain much. It would have been a headshot.
Yeah, Carol. Yeah, I'll say was one of the most interesting and so most sort of developed and changed characters throughout, and she goes through a lot in terms of like kind of adapting more to the world, and then at one point she's kind of wants to leave it behind, and doesn't want to kill anymore, and kind of feels sick of it, and she goes through a period where she's like she just doesn't want to do it, and I think I get that as well because like it's not really who she is, it's like who she had to become. And then I guess a part of her at that point is like, I don't want to be this person anymore. But of course, she kind of has to and ends up going back to it. And kind of similar with Morgan, actually. Morgan kind of went through that when he meets the Aikido instructor, the, was it Eastman? Who, because Morgan goes like crazy when he's left on his own. Morgan goes crazy. But then he ends up meeting Eastman. Eastman puts him in a prison, in that jail. The jail didn't actually have a key, but then it helps him because that's what you need. And he goes through that period of not wanting to kill anymore, and then of course it's just not feasible in that world. Like you can't live like that. And literally, we've seen examples of like Dell or Tyrese. You can't live in this world if you're not willing to kill. It's like you literally kill or be killed. And I get that they don't want to do it. I get is why they don't want to do it, especially Carol, because it's just not really who she is, but it's like who she has to be, especially when it comes to protecting, the people that she cares about. Like if she doesn't do it, you know, who else is going to? And Father Gabriel, I guess, kind of has that a similar kind of thing as well, where he was a priest, like he was a cowardly priest, right? But then, and even in the beginning, he was when they introduced him, he was all like, "Oh yeah, you can't trust Rick, and all that kind of stuff." But as time goes on, and as he's learning more about the world, and because he kind of kept himself out of that world up until that point, according to the story, as he's kind of in it more and seeing more what it's like, and he ends up becoming like his really good shot with a sniper rifle, and he stabs the other priests from the Reapers. He's just like. And he's all talking about, yeah, I speak to God. Don't you hear God anymore? And he's like, knife right in the stomach. It's like, okay, you've changed a lot too. You've changed a lot too. But that's the world they're in, right? And it's going to do it to you. You either change along with it and adapt the way in the ways it needs to survive, which in this case is killing the zombies as well as killing some people. Either that, or you and the people you care about die. It's no good choices. There's no good choices, but ultimately you do what you got to do. So, yeah.
Yeah.
How well do you think? Okay, be honest now. Be honest now. Like no BS. Oh, I'm a badass or none of that. How well do you think you would survive in a Walking Dead type apocalypse world? Like if that happened and you were like, just with all the skills that you have right now and all the knowledge that you have right now, if we just wake up in an apocalypse, how well do you think you're doing? Are you making it to season 11? Are you making it to season 6? Are you even getting through the first episode? Like how well are you doing?
Me, I don't see me living much long like in a situation like that. Honestly, I'd say at most almost for the most part of a year for the longest, because I'm not gonna let no motherfucker me. If it looks like I'm gonna get bit, yeah, I'm turning that gun on myself immediately. Because at the end of the day, what are you running to? Like, there ain't gonna be no cure right off the bat. You gotta have to wait, and then even after, you gotta wait for the cure to get around if the cure comes out. Like in a situation like that, no, I'm gonna barricade myself in the home, and then as far as food goes, try to scavenge some. But yeah, and plus I'm in one of the worst parts for that type of shit in New York. So yeah, there ain't no surviving that.
Mm.
Um, so the moment things look a little too grim, that's it. I'm not sitting here being some fucking survivor and everything. I'm gonna run out the days, and then when it's time, I'm like, all right, I had my fun.
Fair enough. All right. I just remembered something real quick, actually, before I say how long I think I'll survive. You know, you was talking about how black people are not surviving too long in this show. I do remember, like, there's one thing I remember now that I thought was a bit odd. It was at the end of the first season, there was a black lady character that was there, that was in the, she's kind of one of the minor characters in the first season. And then at the end of it, where they meet that guy who's like the CDC something or other, and he was about to blow up the building, he was about to kill himself and blow up the building. And she was like, okay, I'm going to stay with you. And I just thought that made no damn sense at all. Like, why are you staying with him? And she was like, oh, there's nothing out there for us. It's like, you don't know that. Like, why are you staying? And then it was like, Andrea was going to stay, but then Dale was like, no, Andrea, you can't stay. I'll stay if you stay. And it's like, okay, so you're going to, then Andrea ended up leaving because she didn't want Dale. It's like, so who about this black girl? You're not going to stay for her? Like, you don't care about her? Like, you know, I remember thinking that was a bit odd. And then they're all happy that they got out before the building blew up. And it's like, you chose to stay. Yeah, that I remember thinking that was a bit odd. It's like, you're getting a side eye for that one.
Yeah.
But let's see, how long would I survive in a zombie apocalypse? You know what? I feel like with the skills that I have now and the knowledge that I have now, I think I can do, like, no BS. I feel like I could do reasonably okay. Like, I don't think I'm surviving all the way to season 11. Like, I'm probably dead long before that, at least. But I think I can make it to at least maybe season 3 or 4. Like, I think I could survive a little while. You know, like, the thing is, though, that I feel like what's going to get me, though, is, like, I think if it comes down to it, like, in terms of, like, killing people, like, if it, like, really came down to it, like, I think I could. Like, if it was, like, especially if it was, like, they've already killed a bunch of people, and it's there's no question about it. Like, they will kill. It's not like they might, or they may. Are they? I don't know. When it's like a situation, I think I could. But at the same time, I also feel like I don't think I'd want to. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's kind of thing with, like, you know, with, like, Tyrese as well, where it's like, I don't think I'd want to. Like, I think I could. Like, and if I did do it, it would weigh on my mind quite heavily. Like, even though it'd be the right thing to do, because, like, they've killed a bunch of people, they will kill you, and they will kill more people. You got to protect the people. I think I could do it, but even still, I think it's the type of thing that would weigh heavily on my mind. And if I had to do it again, yeah, that's when it might be like, you know what I mean? So, like, yeah, I reckon maybe season 2, season 3, at a stretch, maybe season 4. But yeah, I'm not making it the whole way through. I don't think. I think if it came down to it, like, somebody's taking me out, and it's probably somebody on my own team as well. It'd probably be somebody like Shane taking me out. Actually, no, Shane died earlier, so it won't be him. I don't know. It's probably somebody like in fact, Carol. Carol will probably kill me, actually. I think Carol would end up killing me, because Carol was all like, I gotta protect the group and I gotta do it. Yeah, she'll kill me. When she sees that I'm hesitating, she'll kill me. So yeah, I think sometimes between season 3, season 4, maybe, yeah, season 4 at the most, Carol's taking me out. So that's what I think is happening. So yeah. But yeah, we talked about quite a bit. I mean, I know there's lots more we can talk about, but I feel like we've talked about all the main stuff. Certainly the main stuff I wanted to talk about. But how you feeling? Do you feel there's anything else you wanted to bring up or mention or anything like that?
No, I'm just glad I was able to, you know, hang in there, because, you know, there's like a lot of stuff that I know I didn't know, but we covered enough. You know, I know, of course, you gotta realize it's like 11 fucking seasons or something like that. So of course it'll be impossible to cover everything, and, you know, that wasn't really the goal. It was, you know, I think we pretty much accomplished what we set out to do.
Yeah, I think so. Or actually, before I say that, have I convinced you to watch the remainder of the Walking Dead series? I guess 7 till 11 now. They're available on Disney Plus if you got Disney Plus, or Netflix if you got Netflix. They're readily available to watch. Have I convinced you to at least, even if you don't start the whole thing all over again, have I convinced you at least to watch the remainder of the stuff that you haven't seen?
Absolutely not.
Damn it! Damn it! All right, cool. Fair enough. Well, if you do ever change your mind, which hopefully you do one day, because I do still think it's worth watching, even though, yeah, there were definitely things that didn't sit quite well with me, and I could definitely understand why some people didn't like it too much. Personally, I felt that. Oh, I don't think I've mentioned this actually real quick, but the way it actually ended, it's like, you know, they either defeat the Commonwealth. Ezekiel. Oh, Ezekiel was another cool character as well, by the way. Let me say that real quick. I liked his character, the whole kind of King Ezekiel thing, and his kind of larger than life, and the fact he had a massive tiger walk around. He was a cool character. But yeah, it ends with they defeat the Commonwealth, or, you know, they defeat, was it Pamela, who's the leader of Commonwealth, and so Ezekiel becomes like a leader of the Commonwealth along with Michael Mercer, who's a new character that got introduced a bit later on. So it was a nice kind of happy ending, and Daryl goes off to look for to look for thingy Rick and Michonne. But I personally felt the ending was a bit weak. In my opinion, I just felt like, for one thing, like I said before, it should have ended with Negan. And the rest of it, although there were cool stories, they should have been spin-offs. So by the time it ended, it did feel a bit weak. So yeah, I definitely understand why some people didn't like it. I definitely understand why some people just felt like it fell off. Certainly some things that didn't sit well with me, but overall, I do still think it's worth spending some time on. But yeah, I guess I didn't convince you of that today, but oh well. There's still time. But yeah, I think that's going to be it for this episode of the Uncivilized Art Podcast. If you watched The Walking Dead, let me know what you think. If you liked it, didn't like it, if you bowed out like Sweet Bundy did, or if you watched it all the way through, if you had problems with it, if you thought bits were stupid, let me know. Let me drop a message in the comments, or hit us up on Twitter at uncivilisedArt. I was literally about to say at uncivilisedart.com, but that's not the Twitter. It's just at uncivilisedart. Uncivilized with an S, by the way. But yeah, hit us up on that. But yeah, that's going to be it for now. So guys, thank you for watching and or listening. And until whenever, if ever, we're the ones who live. That's how it ended, by the way. All right, let me stop this recording before I ramble too much.